He त्याजी जाती कुल चलो गुणजित् गुणेढ्या नक्तं दिवं सकरुणं तव पाद पद्मं मोहं कशं बहुकृतं न भजे यतोऽहं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो भक्तिर्भगश्च भजनं भवभेदकारी गच्छन्त्यलं सुविपुलं गमनाय तत्त्वं वक्रोद्धृतोऽपि हृदय मे न च भाति किञ्चित् तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो तेजस्तरन्ति तरसा त्वयि तृप्त तृष्णा रागे कृते ऋतपथे त्वयि राम कृष्णे मर्त्यामृतं तव पदं मरणोन्मेषं तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो कृत्यं करोति कलुषं कुहकान्तकारे श्नान्तं शिवं सुविमलं तव नाम नाथ यस्मादहं त्वशरणो जगदेक गम्य तस्मात् त्वमेव शरणं मम दीनबन्धो ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्म स्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। ॐ नमः श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। ॐ नमो श्री भगवते रामकृष्णाय नमो नमः। सर्वमङ्गल माङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थ साधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणी नमोस्तुते। सृष्टिस्थिति विनाशानां शक्ति भूते सनातनी गुणाश्रये गुणमय नारायणी नमोस्तुते। शरणागत दीनार्त परित्राण परायणे सर्वस्यार्थे हरे देव नारायणी नमोस्तुते। जय 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 महामाई की जय। जय भगवान श्री रामकृष्ण देव की जय। जय स्वामी जी महाराज जी की जय। प्रकृतिं परमां भयावरदा नररूपधरां जनतापहरा शरणागतसेवकतोषकरी प्रणमामि परा जननी जगतां गुणहीन सुता। परमोहगता तरणी भवसागर पार करी प्रणमामि परा जननी परिरुत्य सदा चरणामृतशान्तिसुधा पिबभृङ्गमनोभवरोगहरा प्रणमामि परा जननी जगतां कृपां कुरु महादेवी सुतेषु प्रणतेषु च चरणाश्रयदानेन कृपामयि नमोऽस्तु ते लज्जापटावृते नित्यं शारदे ज्ञानदायिके पापेभ्यो न सदा रक्ष कृपामयि नमोऽस्तु ते रामकृष्णगतप्राणां तन्नाम श्रवणप्रिया तद्भावरञ्जिताकारा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः पवित्रं चरितं यस्या पवित्रं जीवनं तथा पवित्रता स्वरूपिणे तस्यै कुर्मो नमो नमः देवीं प्रसन्ना प्रणता त्रिहन्त्री योगीन्द्रपूजा युगधर्मपात्री तां शारदां भक्तिविज्ञानदात्री दयास्वरूपा प्रणमामि नित्यं स्नेहेन वन्ना मनोस्मदीयं दोषानशेषा सगुणीकरोषि अहेतुनानोदयसे सदोषा स्वाङ्के गृहीत्वा यदिदं विचित्रं प्रसीद मात विनयेन याचे नित्यं भवस्नेहवते प्रेमैकबिन्दु चिरदत्तचित्ते विषिञ्च चेतं कुरु न सुशान्तं जननीं शारदां देवी रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रीत्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः।
Namah Shri Atirajaya Vivekananda Sure Satchit Sukhasvarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So this is lecture Unity in Diversity by Vivekananda. It's as we've said last time, this is basically the second half of the Kathopanishad, on which this is roughly a commentary. And last time, we had traced the development of philosophical thought to the point where basically heavens were discarded as of lasting significance or importance. Basically saying that when philosophy came, men found that this permanent or timelessness in space is not a reasonable alternative. Therefore, the notion of heavens was discarded or at best relegated to a place of secondary importance. This point is now being elaborated upon. For instance, Indra and Varuna are not the names of certain persons, but the names of positions as governors and so on. So managing director, deputy managing director, that sort of thing. The Indra who had lived before is not the same person as the Indra of the present day. He has passed away, and another man from earth has filled his place. So with all the other gods. These are certain positions which are filled successively by human souls who have raised themselves to the condition of gods, and yet even they die. In the old Rig Veda, we find the word immortality used with regard to these gods, but later on it is dropped entirely, for they found that immortality which is beyond time and space cannot be spoken of with regard to any physical form. Note the significance of this. I mean, this is a bold statement. It's basically saying that this book that is revered by the community so much, Rig Veda, it's also an evolution in thought. Immortality is used there to refer to these gods and goddesses initially, but subsequently it's discarded when thought has become deeper. That's what is being talked about here. Immortality which is beyond time and space cannot be spoken of with regard to any physical form, however subtle it may be. However fine it may be, it must have a beginning in time and space, for the necessary factors that enter into the makeup of form. The necessary factors that enter into the makeup of form are in space. This is a key point. See, essentially, when one is talking of something as foundational as what exactly is it that is born, what is it that dies, etc., and what is it that lies beyond it, foundational notions of our way of conceptualizing the universe, or thinking of the universe, need to be inspected, need to be analyzed. So in this particular case, forms are being analyzed and found that for the existence of forms, space is a key notion. I mean, essentially, the notion of form and the notion of space are interdependent. Without space, you don't have form, and if there are no forms, you don't have space. Essentially, it's visual information. Visual information, and from that you abstract out what is the substratum in which all this visual information swims. That's called space, right? That's our the first step towards understanding what space is. Okay. So, therefore, when people were able to have this kind of sharp, deep analytical thinking, when they started developing it, they found that this notion of a God with form, etc., occupying certain measure of space is dependent on the notion of space. So when we are talking of, but anything which occupies space, which is existent in an interval of time, almost by definition has to get extinguished. In other words, it has to be mortal. Therefore, if one has to find a dimension of immortality about oneself, it cannot be in space or time, it cannot be in the heavens. So this notion of svargas at that level of thought becomes basically some kind of a kindergarten. Yeah? I mean, it's a childish or not fully mature way of thinking, and therefore one goes beyond it. Okay. Try to think of a form, and this is what he's elucidating now. Try to think of a form without space. It is impossible. Space is one of the materials, as it were. What we would say today, it's one of the preconditions which make up the form, and this is continually changing. Space and time are in Maya, and this idea is expressed in the line, what is here, that is there too. So the interpretation of what is here is there too is basically what he is interpreting it as is that space and time are the preconditions of our conceptions, of our ideas, is the precondition of our conceptions. If there are these gods, they must be bound by the same laws that apply here, and all laws involve destruction and renewal again and again. These laws are molding matter into different forms and crushing them out again. Everything born must die, and so, if there are heavens, the same laws must hold good there. This is the key point, essentially saying that, look, to a thinking mind, to a mind which is aimed at the truth, which has fundamentally a love of truth as its guiding motive, the notion of these heavens and hells and such like do not have much hold, becomes kind of trivial. I mean, at best, a preliminary way of trying to get beyond what is our basic constitution. And so it's overthrown. This idea of heaven and hell and so on and other places not visible to the eye, etc., these are discarded in favor of a more fundamental enquiry. This is the point here. There is something that he does say here, which I'll like to revert to, and we should talk about it for a little while. Space is one of the materials, as it were, which make up the form, and this is continually changing. Space and time are in Maya, and this idea is expressed in the line, what is here, that is there too. So he reverts to this expression, what is here is there too. Yat eva iha tat amutra. We have quoted this last time, but I think it's good to dwell on it in some detail because it's a rather foundational notion from which many things spring forth. In particular, it gives us some kind of a clear, rational foundation of what we call ethical concerns or morality. And it's not didactic. It is not preaching something to another, saying that, look, you better do this or else you're going to be bad or sinful. But it's essentially saying that, look, if you're really interested in such and such a thing, then this has to be discarded because it's the negative of what you want. So let's read that. That sounded a little abstract. So let's explicate. Yat eva iha tat amutra, yat amutra tat anu iha. Mrityo samrityum apnoti ya iha nana iva pashyati. What is here is there too. What is there, that is right here. Yat eva iha tat amutra, yat amutra tat anu iha. So basically, it's encouraging a non-divisive perception of the world, in particular of fellow beings. Mrityosya mrityum apnoti ya iha naneva pashyati. What happens if we have a more divided view? What happens? Well, what is the principle of division? That is to be found out. And essentially, that principle of division is this identification with this small little amount of space and time, which we call our physical body and mind, and say, okay, this alone is what one is, and this little object, this body in particular, is mortal, is subject to change, decay, and death. So if one is identified with that, what happens? One is subject to death. This simple fact is being said here. If one is interested in that which is transcendent, in particular, you have to go back to the question which started this whole analysis. Basically saying that Yama is asked by Nachiketa that, look, some say that when the body is gone, that person is dead and gone forever, and some say that that the person who dies is still there. What is the truth about this matter? This was the Yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye astiti eke nayam astiti chaike. This was the fundamental question, the basic question from which the whole Upanishad springs forth. It's an answer to that question. It's a question which is deep, and therefore it requires slow unraveling of the various layers and not giving a kind of a narrative story-like answer to it, but really an in-depth analysis of what the question really means and addressing the central point there. So here also says, what exactly is the nature of death that you are talking about, Nachiketa? This is being analyzed. And here it's basically saying, you identify with the principle of limitation, with the principle of change. If you identify your I, your individuality, with this principle of change, with this principle of something that is caught within the framework of space and time, to this limited context, what you are saying is you are subject to death. And then what is it that some say and some say that they are not? It essentially rests precisely on this identification. If you are identified with the principle of limitation, with the principle of change, you are subject to death. Mrityo samrityumapnoti ya iha nana iva pashyati. This principle of change, principle of limitation, is reflected right here, right now, in seeing the manifold, seeing a diversification of things. Not just seeing, but valuing it. Valuing it does not mean only giving it positive values. Give it positive values or negative values. What is the counter thinking? Yat eva iha tat amutra yat amutra tat anu iha. This is the fact that is said. This is the truth that is told. Which means that the here and the there are in one's mind. The other is something born out of personal prejudices, personal deep-rooted ideas which have not been analyzed, not been investigated. Yeah? This is the cause. The cause of seeing difference is not outside, it is there in our minds. At a certain higher level, I'll like to read out Shankara's analysis of this, which is actually rather striking, but it's very very. I mean, it's quite profound. Yat eva iha. This is Shankara's commentary on this particular verse. Yat eva iha karya karana upadhi samanvitam sangsara dharmavat avabhasamanam avivekinam tat eva swatmastham amutra nitya vijnana ghana swabhavam sarva sangsara dharma varjitam brahma. What does that mean? Here, what is here? It's quite closely related to how Vivekananda has translated. Yat eva iha. What is iha? That's what is expanded out by Shankara here. Karya karana upadhi samanvitam sangsara dharmavat avabhasa manam avivekinam. Those who are bereft of introspective analytical intellect, avivekinam. So which means our casual way of looking at the world, looking at other people without investigation into our own psyche. These are basically called, in different places, Shankara uses essentially he uses this aviveki, but it's in a certain sense he also uses some derogatory language occasionally, bala nam, childish intellect, people of childish intellect. Yeah, but it's essentially what it is doing is that, look, if you want to develop a mature mind, then get rid of this silliness about otherizing others. Yeah, it's the foundation of whatever higher structures that we have formed in society. I mean, we are supposed to be living in a democracy, right? So what does that mean? At the foundation, it's essentially saying that two different human beings who we regard as different have certain common basic rights. So at a certain level, this understanding that two different people really are in essence the same gets reflected in various systems of thought. You cannot go and suddenly rob something from somebody else's house because there's going to be a police system. It means that that person has rights to their own property, just as you have rights to yourself. So this societal construct of law, etc., this is built on this foundational notion of some kind of basic equality between people. Here, what is being done is that it's being probed deeper and being established in a certain truth, saying that, look, in the final analysis, this clinging to this temporary little thing that we call I is false. Yeah. So here, avivekinam. So to the unanalytical, and aviveka, Shankara gives it another word, calls it moha. Moha means what? Irrational identification with something. Oh, if this laptop is taken away, I'll develop so much pain. What has happened? I have developed a certain irrational attachment, unreasonable attachment, just by habit, by force of habit, to this object which has nothing really to do with my essential existence. This is what is called moha, and understanding that and separating it out from me is what is called viveka. Similarly, at a certain larger level, this is what gives rise to identification with a smaller group of people as opposed to the other. Yeah? This is called moha, aviveka. So what in that drishti of aviveki, what is it that is being referred to as iha? In that confused way of thinking, what appears as this karya karana upadhi samanvitam samsara dharma. Samyak sarati. Here, samsara does not mean family life. Here it means that which is changing. That which is changing is caught within the framework of causality. Karya karana upadhi samanvitam. Yeah? Samsara dharmavat. So that which in this framework of space and time and causality appears to the unanalytical mind. In Sri Ramakrishna's language, that is exactly where that causality. যখন ভাবি সৃষ্টি স্থিতি প্রলয় করছেন তখন বলি শক্তি, which means basically when we think of this consciousness as creating, sustaining and dissolving or destroying, we call it Shakti or Ishvara. When we think of it as still bereft of this kind of conditioning, which means basically bereft of causal structures, then তখন তাকে ব্রহ্ম বলি. So this is that's the time when we call it pure consciousness or Brahman. This is what is being talked about. But he is saying something more profound there. He's basically saying that which is appearing in this framework of causality is exactly the same. It's a different way of looking at that which is transcendent or which is not caught within this framework of space, time and causality. Shankara is saying exactly the same thing here. Tat eva, that alone is what? Swatmastham. Iha was this world fraught with causality, time, space. But what is yadeva? Iha tat amutra. Amutra means there. What is there? Nitya vijnana ghana swabhavam sarva sansara dharma varjitam brahma. What is there? Swatmastham, hidden in the core of one's being itself. That is the there that is referred to. What is it? Nitya, not caught in the change that time wroughts. Vijnana ghana. Vijnana is pure knowledge. So here it is knowledge itself, the essence of knowledge. Vijnana ghana swabhavam. And what is it? Sarva sansara dharma varjitam. Bereft of the defining traits of what we call samsara, which means defining traits of that which changes. Essentially, what is being said is that which is caught within the framework of space-time causation is the same as that which is beyond. This dual aspect is being unified here. Yatcha amutra amushmin atmani sthitam. That which is the essence of of one's own being, the core of one's being. Tat eva iha, that is what is here. Nama rupa karya karana upadhim anu vibhavyamanam na anyat. In other words, what we are seeing right now is that itself, which is our core of our own being reflected, projected outside. That is being talked about here. In other words, these ways of conceiving reality, it's not there. It's not the outside, out there. It is what is there in us. Yeah. So in a fundamental sense, the essence of one's being is what one finds outside. That be the case, then how are we to act? And there are two answers, and we'll conclude with these two answers. And I'll give you, I mean, there's the first answer, which I think, I mean, those of us who are, who have seen this motto of the Ramakrishna Mission, Atmano Mokshartham Jagat Hitaya Cha. Again, it's a twin motto. I mean, twin guiding motto. What is it? For one's own enlightenment, clarification, knowledge, liberation, and for the good of all. This is done simultaneously. Why? Because this is something that one can carry out in practice. So if the point that is stressed here is that these two, though they seem to be two, are really the obverse and reverse of the same coin. So long as one perceives another, perceives duality. Perceive, does that just mean in terms of seeing? No. It means in terms of what we feel, what we are convinced of at this moment. When we look at another person, are we able to basically say, oh, this person in front of me and the essence of my being, they are not fundamentally different? Is that the feeling that comes to us? Or is it, oh, this person is a good person, I am happy to be along with this person? Or, no, this person is not a nice person, let me recoil. This is where a subjective analysis and alertness about the feelings that get engendered in us. These are not superficial feelings, they are convictions. This needs to be looked at. This is alertness or awareness, but directed at the collection of foundational feelings that arise in our hearts. It is taking care of that which is necessary. Why? Because when this thought springs forth in my heart, what happens? Particularly, I mean, if the thought comes, oh, that this person is fundamentally not different, then what has happened is that our consciousness has expanded. Expanded to embrace the other, so to speak. So the difference between oneself and the other gets diminished. What happens if this does not happen? Then we start getting, as we've repeated here many times, we start getting driven, motivated by feelings. Feelings of what? Anger, hatred, fear. So you look at a person, so, oh, this person belongs to such and such a group of people, such and such a community, such and such a nationality, etc., etc. I must therefore hate him or her, or be angry with him or her. What is this driven by? As always, if you probe, it's essentially driven by fear. What fear? Oh, I am going to get destroyed, or some person related to this person by some faint thread, nationality, religion, whatever, nonsense. This other group of people, I have heard, created destruction to such and such other group of people with whom I identify. And so we are performing a twofold identification at this stage. This is essentially the psychology of fanaticism. Yeah? I identify myself with some limited group of people identify the person in front of me with another limited group of people, those guys are associated with somebody else who has done some destruction, some nasty business to a second person. And what is the consequence? Oh, this person in front of me is going to destroy me. This foundational fear is at the basis of all these negative emotions. This is why at some places, many places in his lectures, Vivekananda keeps saying that fear is the basis of all sin, of all things that are negative. Yeah? So, but one does not, so what exactly lies there? And what really is fear? It is this insecurity about oneself. This is exactly anxiety, fear, all these have stem from exactly this one thing, anxiety or lack of self-worth. Yeah? Insecurity about one's own position in the scheme of largest scheme of things. And therefore this trying to appear aggressive and indulge in practices of anger, hatred, etc., etc. Invariably, such a person would go about doing what? I mean, basically, say, if what has happened is at the root of these things, if there is fear, what does fear make of a person? It basically makes a person a coward, afraid. Afraid of facing oneself foundationally, therefore afraid of facing other person. Facing the other person meaning trying to understand that, look, this person in front of me and I have foundationally something common, and it can be resolved through discourse. And then, oh, but what if that person takes up a stick and starts beating you immediately? Why should I indulge in these ridiculous assumptions? Is that person actually getting up and beating me? Is that a fact? Or is that only in my imagination? Is it only something that, some kind of a cataclysmic doomsday prediction that we have thought about and granted reality to? It's not true that a person, just because so and so is associated with some larger group of people, and that group of people has one or two who have done something harmful. It's there in every community. One starts associating another group of people as the other. It's a meaningless assumption. Who suffers? Who becomes a victim of this disease called fear? Oneself. This anger, hatred, fear, it is that which makes us small, little, petty. And smallness, littleness, and pettiness are invariably associated with identification with a limited being, namely this physical existence. Who is going to get destroyed? At best or at worst, this physical body is going to get destroyed. But the cultivation, swalpamapi asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Yeah? Bhayat. So when somebody tries to advertise a particular ideology through fear, this is what is happening. What is basically saying, it is an encouragement towards adharma. Swalpamapi asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. But somebody is trying to instill fear in the name of dharma. That is not dharma, that is adharma. Yeah? That which holds one together is what is literally what dhri. That's the dhatu. That which holds one together is what is dharma. That which makes one little, makes one small, disintegrated is adharma. So this fear, how does it manifest? Essentially, it says that, look, okay, an individual is afraid, and then there is this misconception in the head, oh, such and such group of people are responsible for this fear that I feel. But one knows at a certain level that foundationally, I mean, this is the nature of things, that this is a false idea. This is a fake idea. It's mithya in the most intense form of the expression mithyatva. And so, what happens? In order to give validity, to make this false notion of fear true, what happens? Such a person is obviously not going to be able to investigate inside, because if one is actually trying to investigate inside through a sharp, penetrating intellect, then the falsehood, emptiness of substance of this fear is going to be thrown up. What does one do? Oh no, that's not something that we'd like to do. We'd like to hug this fear to ourselves. So, try to justify it. How do we try to justify it? Through various intellectual ratiocinations, through various narratives, through various stories which are largely constructed. And those who are clever, but clever in a rather stupid way, what do? They try to bring other people, use their methods of convincing, cajoling, to convince others that, look, this fear is real, this fear is true. Then what happens? Then a group of people start sharing in this common, fake, false fear. What has happened is that a group of people have converted to a religion of fear. This is essentially what fanaticism is about. It's basically trying to convince one group of people that they are under threat. This is an imaginary thing, but to see that it is imaginary, one has to go to the depths of one's consciousness. Difficult to do. Easier, much easier, is direct your mind outward and essentially try to justify this false fear through the fear of others. In other words, convert other people also to this notion of being afraid. Afraid of another. And here what is being done is, so what will happen if one does this? If one does this, one is going away from this notion of unity, of indivisibility, which is what is the truth. Mrityu, what will happen? Paradoxically, in order to save one's body from destruction, what is happening? I mean, this is the constructed narrative. We want to somehow or the other remain alive in this body. But this body is going to keep on changing. Finally, whether it is being destroyed by another or whether it's in the course of time, it gets diseased and died, it is going to get destroyed. What happens? Mrityu samrityum apnoti. So such an individual practicing a religion of anger, hatred, fear, so-called, goes from death to death. Why? Because the simple truth that yat cha amutra amushmin atmani sthitam tat eva iha nama rupa karya karana upadhim anubhivabhyamanam na anyat. This non-divisive idea has not found a place in such an individual's heart. This divisiveness has trumped it. You look at such people, what happens? That there are two of these great forces that are fighting their battles in the human heart. One is essentially this fear and its offsprings, anger, hatred, etc. The other, the opposite of that, is empathy. Yeah, these are not some religious virtues that one has to be didactic about and preach to others. We just analyze ourselves, we find that, look, there are these two forces. What makes us peaceful, happy, joyful? Yeah, when there is a certain measure of empathy for those around us, we feel happy, joyful, calm, collected. When there is this anger and hatred driven by fear, we ourselves get disturbed. So, what happens to such an individual who encourages this divisive feeling? That person is an unhappy, disquieted, person unsatisfied with one's own existence. Why? Basically because that this root of malaise in one's own psyche has not been seen for what it is, seen that this little stupid narrative is a piece of stupidity. That's why he says, avivekinam, sansara dharvavat avabhasamanam avivekinam. It is this prejudice, this lump of fear that is there in our hearts which we hug and embrace and we identify with. It is that which is responsible for my unrest, for my disquiet. It is not the other. The root of otherizing is this fear, anger, hatred hidden in my own heart. The more I understand it, the more I analyze it, and the more I expose it as useless and insubstantial, the more fearlessness dawns, which basically is that, look, what is my essence cannot be destroyed by another group of people, by another community, by any other. And then automatically there is empathy. It is only this empathy and fearlessness go together. When I have nothing to lose, I can afford to be basically empathetic, identify with the other. Yeah? Let me just read out the rest of this particular bhashya because it's quite a profound one. Tatra evam sati upadhi swabhava bheda drishti lakshanaya avidyaya mohitas san ya iha brahmani anana bhute parasmat anyo aham matto anyat param brahma iti nana iva bhinnam iva pashyati upalabhate sa mrityo maranat maranam mrityum punah punah janma marana bhavam apnoti pratipadyate. Since it is thus, it is that once we are caught by these irrational feelings of anger, hatred, fear, when those have caught hold and dominated our heart, mohita, irrational feelings dominating the heart. This is what moha is in practice. Once we have come under the thraldom of that moha, what happens? Iha brahmani anana bhute. In this truth, this universal thing which is not divisive, which is not divided into two realities, anana bhute. Parasmat anyo aham. I am another, you are another. In that which is truly undivided, we conceive of difference. Based on what? Based on this passion of anger, fear, hatred, which makes us little, which makes us small. We catch hold of that, and in that non-divisive consciousness, we conceive of differences. We value differences. We think that this other and I is a reality. This otherizing is a reality. Pashyati upalabhate. What happens then? Once we have done that, mrityo maranam, so from death to death, which means basically we have subjected ourselves, identified ourselves with this changeful universe. In other words, I have caused my own destruction. Yeah? In a certain place, Vivekananda also says, look, pick up and take the responsibility on your own shoulders. If there is misery and pain that I am feeling today, the root of that is in my psyche. There is a certain contribution that I can make, and that contribution is the dominant contribution to my suffering. I'm not talking about extreme physical pain, but most of our mental anxieties, particularly fear, which is what drives many of us. Once we identify that through clear analysis and see that it is what it is, it's not of particularly great value. This is what Jagat Mithyatva in practice really means. this introspective intellect with a sharp analysis. Yeah? Basically, who do we destroy through this anger? Maybe we cause some harm to another person, maybe that person causes harm to us, but really nurturing this poison in our hearts, this poison of fear in our hearts, what happens? We destroy ourselves. And recognizing that is really taking the responsibility on one's own shoulders. Yeah? This is a certain robustness of approach, a certain, for want of a better word, manliness, which Vivekananda never tires of talking about, is what is required. The opposite of that is timidity, cowardice. So people who try to become this kind of aggressive against a people, against a nation, etc., etc., be absolutely certain, not in self-defense, but just out of hatred, anger, fear, be absolutely certain these people are completely cowards, and therefore to cover their cowardice is appearing as a bully. So we'll stop there. It's actually rather something that we see. If we see around, look around us in the world, we'll see that these things are not esoteric philosophical ideas, but they are being executed in practice all over. These should be stimuli to us as far as we as individuals are concerned to do that piece of introspection so that we can get rid of this little piece of divisiveness, at least right here in our own hearts. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.